Computer. All right. Good evening, everyone. If you are watching this, we did it. We made it to the end. I'm Jeff. I'm joined by my friends Josh and Bernadette. We're talking about really it's a critical analysis of what we've learned from this course. We've got a number of objectives, right? We're going to be looking at our initial sort of job positions that we found and determining whether these job positions are still of interest to us. Each of us, we found 2 to 3 new job positions, and we're going to talk a little bit about each of these new opportunities and why we chose them and what differences might exist between these new positions and the old positions, and the viability of whether we have the skill set to attain these new positions, and then ultimately what competencies that we have, what we bring to the table for any of the positions that we were talking about, and what gaps might exist, right? So what competencies do we have? What competencies do we not have? And maybe how we would address closing those gaps. And so I guess I'll start. And these 3 positions we talked about at the very beginning of the course. These were the 3 positions of interest that I chose. All of them, you can see, have one thing in common. They are all positions at the University of Texas, which is where I currently work now at UT High School. So the first position is an instructional designer position at the Dell Medical School. So this position is really interesting because it is a combination of instructional designer, right, providing support to the faculty members and really using Canvas to its fullest capacity and all the features that are provided, but also Dell Medical School has a lot of instructional technology physically in the space. And so there are opportunities to making sure that that technology is used to its fullest potential. And so the requirements for this position, obviously proficiency in Canvas, 2 years of experience in designing, supporting education applications, and ultimately technical problem solving. Compensation wise, it's this is something that's common at the University of Texas where they'll give you like a dollar amount, but depending on your experience, it could be more. So for this one, compensation for this position is 65,000 or more. The other position that I think I talked to you all about last time was this educational technologist position at the McCombs School of Business. Honestly, despite the name differences, educational technologist, it is a very similar to the position at Del Med, honestly. It's really providing that Canvas support to the faculty, to the professors who are delivering either content in person, hybrid, remote, whatever mode that we're talking about. Just making sure that that Canvas experience is sort of implemented to its fullest potential. There is a degree of Excel and sort of database experience that is required. And the compensation is pretty close to the instructional design position at Dell Medical. And then the last of the 3 that I initially talked about is this learning intelligence analyst position. This is kind of interesting because it's more of a university level position through the provost office, where you are really looking to extract data from Canvas at a university level, extract it, clean it, analyze it to really determine, certain patterns in terms of how Canvas is being used or not used as effectively. Compensation wise, this is one's a little bit more in terms of compensation, 75,000, but there's also, I think, a higher level of expectations in terms of skills required, proficiency with SQL based languages. And like this is all related to the data analysis bit, but I would say I'm still interested in all of the 3. I think I applied to all of the 3. I did hear back from Dell Medical, and I'll say right now, this is a secret. You can't tell anybody else this, but I did get a job offer this afternoon, literally for this position. So I got to meet with them to talk about it in more detail tomorrow, but you just got to keep your lips, throw away the key. All right. Here are the new positions, right? These are positions I have, one of which I've applied. I'll tell you which one in a second, but these are positions that I honestly feel like, yes, they are in the sort of the realm of interest in terms of where I see myself professionally, getting this master's in instructional design, but I also recognize they're a bit of a stretch. The first one is an online learning manager slash project manager for the School of Computer Science at the University of Texas. And so the responsibilities include leading the computer science and data science online team, communicating with the faculty, helping. So really, this is a master's degree, or a remote master's degree program for computer science. So if you wanted to get your master's degree in computer science at the University of Texas, you would be taking classes in Canvas. And so this position would help make sure those courses are ready for what's the word? Deployment, right? So making sure the students are enrolled, making sure the TAs are enrolled. So it's a lot of just managing just the stream of activity through these Canvas courses. So obviously, a requisite for this position is a strong understanding of the Canvas LMS, but also a master's degree from an accredited university in instructional design or educational technology, curriculum development, so on and so forth. The compensation is a little bit higher than what I showed you from the previous slide, $80,000 or even higher. This was a position I applied to. I had a 20 or a screener interview, so it's like a 25-minute kind of meet and greet. The timeline in which they were looking to hire this position was pretty long, so I haven't heard back from them, but that's kind of the par for the course at UT. Time works a little bit differently in terms of how quickly these things progress. The real stretch, this was a relatively new position. I don't know if any of you are familiar with UT on-ramps, but it's a dual enrollment program for the high school level. So, you have your AP courses that students can take, but you got to take the AP test to determine whether or not you get credit for that course at a college level, right? So on-ramps is an alternative, right? So you can take US history through on-ramps and get your high school credit, but also get credit for US history, for example, at the college level without having to take the AP test. So this would be the Associate Director of Information Technology, a really high-level position within on-ramps, really leading the strategic plan for technology infrastructure, ensuring the effective implementation of customer support products and services. So there's really what I recognized a significant project management component to this, especially when you are requiring certain specific project management methodologies like Agile and DevOps. So because this is such a high level strategic position, it didn't surprise me that this was a higher paying position also. I believe I applied to this largely because of my familiarity with on-ramps and Canvas, but it is not unsurprising that I haven't heard anything back yet, just because I recognize that I don't necessarily have the experience that they might be looking for. So in terms of what I do bring to the table, what I decided to do is really just take elements of my resume, the way in which I present myself, to talk about my competencies. And so the first sort of category is curriculum development, planning, instruction. And so this is where I would highlight my experience with backwards design. That's what this wonderful image is meant to represent, but also designing a flipped classroom model of instruction through Canvas. As a department chair, as a teacher in social studies, I have experience facilitating data-driven PLCs. And then also using in the classroom instructional strategies that prioritize engagement. When it comes to stakeholder engagement or change initiatives, I think I have a lot of experience uh, with audience-focused communication, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, gathering data from stakeholders and analyzing it in order to make certain decisions about organizational change. And then I while I don't have like the traditional, PMP project manager experience, I do like to think that with the projects I have worked on, I'm using kind of like that general framework that I think we're all familiar with. We've talked about in this course of methodologies and really focusing on collaboration to get things done. Other competencies, professional development, planning, and facilitation. This is where I emphasize my experience working with adult learners. And so when I was an instructional coach, I played a role in developing professional development, whether it was like new teacher in service or the PD that we would do on our in-service days. Um, my coworkers were adult learners, and so I was very mindful in terms of how I was designing the PD to really play to that particular audience. Um, Software, in terms of my competencies, I talked about Canvas quite a bit. But in my role at UT High School right now, I've really just I've dived into Microsoft 365 in terms of all of the different apps. I think you're both familiar with like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, but there's a lot of other Microsoft apps that all communicate with each other that you can do some really cool things with. In this program, right, through the University of Houston, I've been able to play around with these other toys like Adobe XD, Adobe Captivate, Storyline 360. And so I've definitely made a point of putting those on my resume as competencies to highlight. And in terms of gaps, I spoke about project management, right? So there was that one position that highlighted DevOps and Agile. And so while I understand conceptually like what those are, I don't have any experience working within those systems. In terms of contract or vendor management, right? Every organization is going to have its own rules and own processes for working with vendors, identifying vendors, selecting vendors. The University of Texas has its own system, not surprising. So I know that certain positions would, um, I think, I think way more heavily somebody that has experience working within the university in that capacity. And so, any opportunity that I can get to learn how to do that is just going to benefit me. And then the database component, right? I've messed around with Excel, but there are other tools that are more, I think, more powerful when it comes to analyzing data. So MS Lists, Power BI, I'm really starting to dip my toes into these tools to, take, a giant spreadsheet of information or data or multiple spreadsheets of data, connect them together in order to generate like visualizations that people could really, I think, better understand. So I said a lot of stuff. I don't know if you have any questions. Any comments?
Congratulations is
Oh,
really my big comment there.
it's a
That's
secret.
really exciting.
Secret. Be
Yes,
careful.
secret congratulations.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree
Well,
with Joshua. Congratulations to you.
well, Josh, you
What
want?
what major differences did you like? Did you notice any differences in the types of jobs that even caught your eye or you were interested in at the end versus like how you were choosing at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like that's a good question. The the one thing that was sort of non-negotiable is I really do want to stay at UT just because of geographic proximity to where I live, and I've been in the pension system for long enough where it's really hard to justify letting that go, right? And so I just want to stay in basically TRS, but also do new things. And so ultimately, I don't know how to answer your question, Brenda. It's a good question though. Um, Instructional design is really the core function I'm really paying attention to. Canvas, I'm paying attention to that to make sure there's a degree of familiarity. Beyond that, I'm also, looking for things to learn, right, to grow into. And so that's kind of why I like the Dell Med position, is that there's a comfort level with Canvas, but there's so many of these tools that, like the technology piece, that I'm going to learn how to use, and then ultimately design, the resources to show other people how to use them, or what to do if it's not working, right?
Hmm.
I don't know if that answered your question though.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
All right, so I'll take over from here.
Yeah,
So these are my three initial ones. I think we were all in the same group for the
you were
initial meeting, I believe.
full
Hmm.
circle.
So y'all have seen these before. But so my first one was instructional designer for HCA Healthcare, which is in Houston, which is where I am. Um, as far as like responsibilities and requirements, it all seemed pretty standard. Nothing stood out for me, and still nothing really stands out. The job is non-existent anymore. It's been closed, so that's a door I don't really have to look at anymore. But I like that one. I thought that was interesting. It's obviously a healthcare related job, and I have some minimal knowledge of healthcare, so I thought that would be kind of interesting to look at. And then that one in the middle there, learning analyst or instructional designer at Yahoo. This one was a remote position, which I really enjoyed. Um, I felt like looking at this one, the instructional design side seemed like things that I would either kind of already knew the concepts of, or would hopefully learn kind of throughout the next year or two. But the learning analyst, looking at data and analyzing and creating those like evaluation models and stuff, which kind of picking up a little bit, but that's definitely an area for that one that would still be a gap if it was still one that I was considering. And then the last one was another healthcare one. Is instructional designer for Innovage, which is a retirement facility, and so it's just kind of training nurses and other staff at those types of facilities. Um, Nothing. They're all pretty similar. I don't think they really have any wild differences in their requirements, but that's kind of my initial ones. And I think when I was going through and picking those initial ones, I was like, I don't really know anything. I don't know what I don't know. So I went for basic ones. For the current ones that I'm looking at, as I was looking, I was like, oh, I recognize some of these requirements. I feel like I understand these a little bit better now. And then a couple even popped up. I was like, oh, I feel like actually qualified to apply for these. Although that might have just been overconfidence at the time. Uh, so the first one, these I just took these. I took some screenshots just straight from LinkedIn. So this first one on the left here is the director of math instructional design at Power My Learning, which is a remote position, but they're based in New York. But looking at the qualifications, they are looking for 5 years of experience leading digital content, which obviously I don't have. Um, and then, sorry, I'm rereading. They're looking for just the best practices for multilingual learners and bilingual learners and ESL students, which is something as a teacher in southern Houston area I'm very familiar with. And then national math standards, I've got that. And then project management, which is again something at the beginning of this course I wouldn't have really considered something I know about, but now having kind of read and talked and assessed some of the projects that are going on that I'm handling, I think, okay, maybe I do have maybe just a little bit of project management understanding. But yeah, for that one, I felt like I had a lot of qualifications for, and I just thought it was really interesting. The salary on it was also wild. I was like, yeah. Um, for the second one, I saw this one, I was like, oh my gosh, McGraw Hill. I used McGraw Hill this year. I hate it. Let me go fix it. I was like, let me get back in there and I want to go take a look at it.
Tear them down
But
from the inside.
well, rebuild
Yeah.
better from the inside. But that's why I saw that one. I was like, oh, I'm adding this to the list. I want to look at this one a little bit more deeply. And then that last one, the third one, training designer one for Steris, which I was like, I have no idea what Steris is. Let's look at it. And it's a manufacturing plant for sterile hospital equipment, which clearly something I have zero experience on. But I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at one that I don't know anything about, and let's learn a little bit as I'm doing it. So that was kind of my look there. I think the biggest surprise looking at that one is they were looking for a lot of like 3D modeling and CAD skills, which I've played around with 3D modeling just kind of in my own personal time, and it is so hard, but it is cool. And so I was like, well, that would be cool to be able to. My job is to 3D model things or work with people that 3D model and build stuff.
So
So
before we go on, I just have a
yeah.
quick question. Like across the board, what I notice is that you seem to be gravitating towards private sector jobs. That's the first observation I have.
Hmm.
But then the second observation I have is like the new positions seem to ha go back to being kind of associated with education. Like the first three didn't seem anywhere remotely connected, but now
Yeah.
we're going back to, math, science.
Hmm. Um, so kind of after our video, I had the realization that it's probably a good idea to, if you're going to start looking for something, look for something that you are in a relevant, like a related field.
Yeah.
And also, when I looked on LinkedIn, there were only 5 jobs in Houston. And
Okay.
so these were just the remote jobs that I found that I felt like worked, um, or could work at least. So that was kind of just the thinking there is for these first two, very closely related, very heavy math. And then McGraw Hill, they have one for a bunch of different
Yeah.
subjects. So they've got a bunch of postings right now. So I figured with all the different stuff I do at my school, I have a shot. And then here I kind of just broke down the competencies and skills from what they were requesting with what I felt like I have at the moment, and I just kind of did it in that same pattern there. So for the director of math, the one that I hadn't thought about or hadn't considered, oh, I guess it's on the next slide. But yeah, I have been a fourth and fifth grade teacher for 7 years. I have eventually will have the advanced degree in instructional design. I've been ESL certified for 7 years. Oh, there it is. I have presented at one workshop, so this is my confidence coming through here. Um, I did a parent meeting with like 20 or 30 parents, and then I'm presenting a second one for teachers in February. So I will have more of that experience. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there and hoping the confidence tricks people. And then I'm just real familiar with ESL best practices. For McGraw Hill, they didn't really list a lot of requirements that felt that they were super specific to instructional design. It was a lot of just like, do you communicate well? Can you collaborate? Can you work with other people and organize meetings and things like that? But some of the ones, like the more specific ones, degree is in the works. And then through the degree, I have experience with design and research and theory in the field. So that's all kind of coming along. And then the last one, which I've had a few things that met what they were looking for, but then I think most of the stuff that they wanted, I have no idea about. But again, degree, knowledge of design and theories, and then I have expert in Canvas. I don't know what LMS that they're using,
Mm.
possibly Canvas, but probably not. So I know what an LMS is and I know how to use one, but I don't have specific knowledge. And then again, confidence. I know about project management now. Probably not enough, but confidence works, right? And then as far as gaps for the director position, they mentioned HQIM when it talked about some of the state and national math standards. And HQIM is not an acronym I had heard before.
I don't think I've
So
heard of it
I
either.
was like, that is something I would have to look into if I actually did an application here. And then I have very little leadership director experience. I would be kind of coming in from a whole different state with different experiences and very little leadership experience. So that's something I'm lacking. For McGraw Hill, it required a lot of coding. It said, I think it mentioned HTML and Java, zero coding skills. And then for the last one, it wanted a lot of multimedia production, a lot of video editing and things like that, which makes sense since they're essentially a factory. Um, I've shot videos in high school for class projects, and that's the last video I ever made. Or took videos of like my baby, but that's about it for videos. Um, and it mentioned like knowledge of equipment repair, which I like to take stuff apart and rebuild it, but on a professional industrial level, that would be very dangerous, I think. And so that's something that I would. Sorry, my baby came to say hi before she
All
goes to
right.
bed.
It's the fourth member.
Yeah, the fourth member of our team. And then lastly, just that 3D modeling and CAD, and then just more coding knowledge.
All right.
Bernadette, you're up.
Okay. These are the three jobs that I initially presented. Two of them are instructional designer, one different term, same thing, learning experience designer. I got all of these jobs from Indeed. And at the time, it wasn't clear exactly who the prospective employers were, you know? But they all had similar responsibilities, mainly about the creation of learning experiences and integration of technology, supporting in some shape, form, or fashion, requirements pretty much the same. Obviously, some kind of knowledge and comfort with LMSs, um, instructional design software. Ooh, that's a big typo. Adobe. Um, some of them wanted 3 years experience, that kind of thing, all of which at the time and still are some of my gaps, you know. Salary ranged from the 50s the to 80, but the last one being the more higher um, paid position. That one seemed the learning experience designer was more of a, I could tell that you were more involved in cranking out and being, you know, part of the design process machine, you know, um, creating learning experiences. Whereas the first one was sort of kind of straightforward, but still a bit more um, I would probably like an entry level situation where you're adding support and that kind of thing. And then the middle one was a contract thing because at the time I was, you know, at the time, my confidence level in like going deep, you know, going head first in the deep end of instructional design was not that high. And so I'm like, well, maybe, you know, get a contract and put my feet, a couple of toes in the water and see what that goes. So that's what that represents. So those are the three jobs that I started off with. And these are the two new positions. I only chose two positions. They both are instructional design heavy. One is a management position with Chubb. Chubb is an insurance global sales kind of company. They seem to operate kind of all over the space, like they're trying to grab whatever they can grab. But so they're looking for someone to manage their team of instructional designers. And that person, the thing that struck me the most about this was is that I cut out a lot of the verbiage, but the repeating of a deep knowledge of instructional design methods and learning theories and creating, and they even use words like, specific learning objectives. And so this said to me that this was a really kind of, if pure is the word, a pure instructional design opportunity. Yeah, it's at a management level, but it often just taking these two courses, I kind of feel a little confident that I could manage, and know enough about the process to oversee. The other is with rights. So I kind of, one is in the private sector and one is higher ed. I'm kind of leaning more towards higher ed. I think that's just because of my own affinity for education. This one is one of the highest salaries, and that's the difference too. Like, salaries in the private sector are a lot better than they are in, the educational field. But this one is sort of like the job that Jeff was talking about with Dell, creating content, learning experiences, collaborating with faculty and different key stakeholders at the university, get content out there, creating everything so that they could deliver their classes. And then this also has a component of training where the expectation is that you would conduct professional learning and professional development sessions with faculty and other stakeholders around instructional design and the integration of technology. So those are the two positions that that caught my eye this go around.
So I have a quick question for you, Bernadette. Of these five positions, is there one that is like rises to the top in terms of like,
Well, the other three aren't open anymore. Um, I'll tell you what, if I had to, probably rice, and that's only because these are my first two courses in a master's degree.
oh,
And I still feel like I need a little bit more exposure. I think if I were where you are, Jeff, I think you're a lot closer to the end, right? I would probably definitely apply for the instructional design manager position at both of these, actually, you
hmm.
know, and see where I would go with that. So they piqued my interest and kind of are like the carrot in front of the horse for me, to encourage me along this journey and kind of helps me to contextualize my learning going forward. And so, what are some of my competencies? Well, um, curriculum development and design, the development of synchronous and asynchronous, and we can hear those words again. Courses, in-depth knowledge of instructional design and adult learning theories and methods, um, needs analysis to identify learning and training where it supports where it's required, facilitating face-to-face professional developments. I've been a chairperson of social studies department for 6 years, so stole these words from you, facilitated data-driven PLCs, along with
Yes.
department meetings, and as well as on-campus trainings, developing job aids and videos and that kind of thing. And obviously from the instructional side, creating, engaging, and just in time kind of learning experiences, both for my colleagues and for my students, and experience with creating now in Articulate. As far as training, I just spoke about being a teacher leader for a number of years. I'm still a team lead here in Houston, managing a team of 10 and 11 or 11 educators, making sure that their instruction is aligned, and they're doing their instruction with fidelity to the standards and calendars. So that's a bit of project management in there, making sure that they can meet deadlines, are, are set, processes are laid out, that kind of thing. Um, Creation of instructional resources for students and for other educators and those kinds. So those are some of my strengths. You can go on to the next slide. With those strengths come a knowledge and proficiency in a number of software two LMSs in particular, Canvas and Schoology, Microsoft Suite, the Google suite of stuff. I should not have Adobe up there. I think I should have erased that. That is one of my weaknesses. That's my gap. Storyline, Camtasia, and obviously Microsoft Teams and so. And one of my gaps is definitely Adobe. There's some project management and some of that. So out of the DevOps shouldn't be there, but definitely agile management. Other LMSs were mentioned, like Brightspace and that kind of thing. Obviously, the industry experience, and I have never ever been able to master Excel. It's just something that I kind of look at and I'm like, whatever. I can create this. I can create this table in Word. I'm going to Word. And project management software like Trello. So those are my gaps.
Okay, so I guess at this point we are like wrapping up, but then also giving some final comments related to the strengths of the course experience, what we might change to enhance the course, weaknesses of the course experience, and then maybe some learned understandings or takeaways. And so I guess I don't know, I'll go first. The strengths of the course, things I guess that stood out to me. Um, this course, I think, does a really good job of providing an overview of a lot of the other courses that are in this program that we're in. Un that's not unfortunately. I think I took all of those other classes first. So now that I'm in this class, it feels more like a review versus an introduction. So um, I'm trying to put myself in Bernadette's position. Like, this is a good class when you start taking, the learning theory,
Hmm. I
uh,
appreciate that. Yeah.
performance, um, technology class. Like, you're going to have like maybe like a foundation of like, oh, I kind of know what this is about already.
Right.
I thought that was a strength.
Yeah,
I
I would
do
agree with that
too.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm half-ish away. I've taken some of the things. I've taken some courses over the stuff we talked about. So those I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. These were good things to remember. But yeah, so like you said, it was kind of review for stuff we've already done, and then toe in the water for some of the stuff that'll be upcoming or that we'll need to know eventually.
So
The
I'm
strength for
curious
me,
what you both think you would want to change. If there was anything to change.
I mean, what I would change it doesn't make sense in the context of an online master's, but that's what I would change. I'm a brick and mortar girl, and it would be nice to be able to, not have to do everything online. If that's what I'd have, that's the one thing I would change.
Yeah, I so to kind of go, I'm gonna go back to what I like a little bit. I like that we do our discussions as a video
Yeah.
rather than me having to write five separate discussion responses to each person twice and just do all of that. We can get like our three knocked out of the way and we're done as a video, which is really nice. But then the negative of that is we are all very busy people and locking down scheduling between work,
Mm.
family, emergencies, and all of that is difficult, especially as an online thing when we are all essentially just working after we get home from work. We're
Mhm.
out on and we're meeting. So I don't know how to change that and if it could be done, but I guess it kind of strikes a nice balance.
So I
I
guess
think we did. I think we
the
did.
oh, go ahead, Bernadette. I'm sorry.
No, I think we did a good job at it.
Oh,
I appreciate the efforts that you guys have put
yeah,
into uh,
I
Yeah, the
appreciate
discussions
that.
the conversations have been really good.
and
Just I hate scheduling
even
things.
with being able to schedule, like, it's a little bumps here, but I don't think we've missed any. We've been able to get
No,
on with
yeah,
it, you know.
I guess
So
what I might change is, in the course, there are a lot of resources provided, a lot of links, a lot of videos, a lot of articles. And for me, it kind of feels overwhelming in terms of, you know, is there one or two that are like really helpful and is everything else just kind of like extra? And so, maybe with a little bit more curation, like
yeah. I
maybe
was
minimizing the number of links and just saying like because it kind of felt redundant after a certain,
Yeah, I was very guilty of, all right, I'm going to open all of them and then I'll read through and then kind of close as I go. And after like the second one, I'd be like, all right, I'm not reading this anymore.
Yeah.
And then I would just close them all and be like, all right, got
It's
it.
for me, it was kind of really similar. I think I talked to you guys before about my experience in grad school across the pond. And that's kind of really like what they do to you. They just give you like 3 pages of references and let go with God. So for me, it was just kind of like, it just I automatically went back into my strategy of what I do when I'm faced with an overwhelming set of resources. It's like there's no way I'm watching all of this or reading all of this. At the questions and look at what I'm supposed to do and find what I need and then move on from there. But I get it. Yeah, I do get it. I absolutely get it. Um, I
So I,
guess
I guess for me, like looking at the next question about weaknesses, like I guess my response to the previous question is kind of still kind of related to this next question about weaknesses. And so, and if I was going to say like the overabundance of these resources and maybe kind of being overwhelmed by them, that is a weakness of the course experience. What I would change about it is, providing a little bit more curation. So I don't know if any of you had other
I
weaknesses to,
think
to talk about.
for me, I think like I don't know what it would look like, and I hate to bring this up without bringing up a solution. But like all of our assignments were okay. You guys get together, do a discussion, right, and tape the discussion. Um, I would like to see some variety, some a little different approach, to one or two of the assignments. Maybe not a discussion, but maybe we put together something. That kind of thing. Something where we have to work collaboratively with others, as we've all read 65 times in the job listings that we've been looking at. So that kind of thing. That was the only thing I was just like, when I didn't think about it until like recently, and I looked and I was like, yeah, oh, all of our discussion, all of our assignments have been get together and discuss, which is not bad. I get it, peer to peer learning, right? I understand the strategy 100%, but I would like to see a little bit of a little something different.
Yeah, I think you both kind of nailed what I was thinking as well.
Okay, learned understandings, takeaways. I think the biggest thing I have taken away from this course experience is that uh, there's a lot of different ways to just like all these positions that we've been talking about are all instructional designer positions, but for many of them, they all have different names, right? The job titles are all different, even though at their root,
Mhm.
they're all instructional designer positions. And so it's been sort of like recognizing that and being able to like, I guess, discern more, I guess, discreetly, like what are the true differences between these positions? If
Mhm.
they all fall under the umbrella of instructional design, what is it about it that makes them truly different? And I think I'm better prepared to do that now, having gone through this course than maybe I was at the beginning.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
think for me, a takeaway is personally, I always feel like I don't know as much as I actually do, or I don't have the skills that I actually do. So coming and doing this and getting the sample of everything that is required, now I feel like I say, okay, I actually do know a lot more than I think, or I feel like I'm able to articulate things that I might not have been able to articulate with the right verbiage and the appropriate lingo of the career, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I think for me, because this is the beginning of it,
You have
it
the last
has
word,
it,
Bernadette. So just making.
it's give it's given me a really good overview of the field, right? Um, it's not like I came into this and didn't know or have an idea about instructional design, but it definitely opened my eyes and allowed me to see, broaden my horizons, as and my understanding of the field, and see all the different ways that instructional designers operate in this educational technology intersection. So that's been exciting, and it's given me I'm excited to see and learn more so that I can begin to like really connect with the part of it that I'm most passionate or excited about, either learning and developing, because you know how it is. You come into something with an idea about, oh, this is what I'm going to do with it. And then what you end up doing with it is generally so much different from what from the picture that you first started with. So it's given me a really good, solid introduction to learning, to instructional design, learning technologies, and performance technology as well.
I think that's a good place to end things. Like I think you really did a good job of just kind of bringing us full circle, Bernadette. So thank you. And thank you, Josh. Like I think we can officially say we're done.
Yeah,
Yeah, we made it.
All right. Now
it's been a
I'm
pleasure,
going
Kevin.
to stop the recording and say thank you to everybody that watched this. Goodbye.